She stood there in her yoga pants and designer sunglasses, jabbing her finger toward my cabin like it had personally offended her. "That structure," she snapped, "is in clear violation of HOA Code 17.6, unauthorized occupation of a lakefront residence." Except it wasn't because the cabin she was pointing at. It was sealed, locked up tighter than Fort Knox. No one had stayed there in months. And what she didn't know, what made this whole scene hilarious in hindsight, was that I owned the entire lakeside housing complex. Every single unit. Let me back up a sec. It started as a quiet weekend. You know, the kind cool breeze off the water, loons calling in the distance, that faint pine scent in the air that makes you want to breathe deeper. I come up to do a routine inspection, just check on some weatherproofing, make sure the sealed units were still holding up after spring runoff. That's when I noticed her. Karen hair dyed a shade of blonde not found in nature. Clipboard clutched like a medieval scroll, stomping across the gravel path like she owned the damn lake. She didn't. I did. But that didn't stop her from marching straight up to my truck as I stepped out, holding her phone like a weapon. "You're trespassing," she declared, filming my every move. "I've already called the sheriff." I blinked. "On who?" "You," she said, puffing herself up. "You're not allowed to be here. That cabin is under HOA lockdown while we determine its compliance status." Oh, the irony, the pure golden storybook irony. See, the cabin she was talking about had been sealed by me personally as the owner and builder of these custom eco-lodges. I'd put that one offline for repairs after a lightning strike fried part of the solar system. It wasn't just sealed, it had its utility panel disconnected, shutter secured, and a literal lockout tag stating, "Do not open, environmental repair in progress." Anyone with half a brain could have seen that, but not Karen. No, Karen saw something else, a chance to flex power she didn't have. That's when the sheriff pulled up. Now, most folks would get nervous seeing blue lights, especially when some wild-eyed HOA lady is yelling about felonies and unauthorized use of water frontage, but me, I waved. Sheriff Dobbins and I had gone to school together. He stepped out, gave me a nod, then turned to Karen and asked, "Ma'am, can I see your ID?" Karen froze. "What? Why?" He tilted his head. "You called in a criminal trespass. I need to verify the complaint. ID, please." And the no, you could almost hear the balloon pop. Karen's whole attitude deflated. Her hand went limp. "I didn't bring it, but he's the one trespassing." Sheriff Dobbins looked at me deadpan. "You own the place, right?" "Every inch," I said, pulling out my land title card. "Happy to show you the deeds." "Want me to pull up the easement boundary too?" Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Wait, you're not? You're not a tenant?" "Nope. Owner, builder, manager, and licensed environmental restoration consultant. This whole complex, I designed it." That's when Dobbins stepped forward and looked Karen square in the face. "Then why'd you call in a false police report, ma'am?" She started babbling about codes and HOA rules and how the lake was under private neighborhood oversight. But here's the twist. There was no HOA, at least not one with legal standing. Turned out Karen had set up an unofficial community standards council with 2 other seasonal residents. They'd printed fake notices, slapped them on rental doors, and even mailed out dues invoices to out-of-town owners, pocketing the money to fund their little power fantasy. I hadn't thought it worth the trouble until that day, until she tried to get me arrested on my own land. Dobbins shook his head. "You got a lot of explaining to do. Fraudulent HOA activity is a civil offense at best, but filing a false police report, that's criminal." She turned bright red. No, I was just trying to maintain standards. The lakefront's been. People have been abusing it." I gestured toward the sealed cabin. "It's sealed. Karen hasn't had a renter since January. You could have just asked." She snapped. "I don't ask men like you. You people just come in, build things, take over." Dobbins cut her off. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. We'll sort this out at the station." You should have seen her face, like someone had unplugged her brain. She actually tried to walk away, just spun around and muttered, "This is ridiculous," and started speed walking up the path, like that would undo the last 5 minutes, but Dobbins wasn't having it. Mom stopped walking. "You're being detained." Karen kept going. Click radio. Need backup on site. Detaining a suspect on foot. 2 minutes later, another cruiser pulled in from the Fire Road entrance. Karen got as far as the gravel lot before they caught up. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching the whole thing unfold like some wild lakefront episode of Cops HOA edition. And the best part, while they were securing her in the back of the cruiser, Dobbins came back over, looked at the sealed cabin again, and let out this low whistle. "This place is built like a fortress," he said. "You ever think about using it for emergency shelter or something?" I grinned. "Funny you mentioned that. Got a permit pending to list it as a Red Cross backup site." Karen nearly sabotaged a designated disaster facility. Dobbins let out a laugh that echoed across the lake. "That's going to look real good on her record." And it did. Turns out she had 2 prior spoths dismissed in other counties for community interference complaints and had been trying to start fake HOAs wherever she moved. Her little standards council was quietly scamming short-term renters out of thousands in deposits. Once I turned over footage from my trail cams up, they caught her opening sealed units, poking around with her iPad like she was inspecting a crime scene. It became a whole new ball game. By the time the state attorney's office got involved, we weren't just talking about trespass or false reporting. We were looking at impersonation of a government entity, mail fraud and harassment. Her dues invoices were enough to bring in the postal inspector. That's federal. She's facing trial next month. Her so-called council dissolved overnight. And you know what I did? I turned the whole lakefront complex into a rotating veterans retreat. Free stays for wounded warriors and their families. Local sheriff's office helps monitor it. Trail cam signs everywhere now just in case someone else gets Karen ideas. But hey, when a guest who still drives by once a week, real slow in a beige Prius with binoculars, yep, Karen out on bond, still bitter. And every time she does, I wave real friendly because the cabin she once tried to report, it now has a giant wooden sign on the porch that reads, "Property monitored by veterans and karma." So what do you think? Was I too nice or just right? A month later, I was sitting on the porch of that very same cabin, coffee in hand, boots kicked up, watching the sun paint gold across the lake when I got the news. Karen had taken a plea deal, 3 misdemeanors, 1 felony reduced, restitution for all the fake invoices, and a 5-year ban from serving on any neighborhood board, council, committee, or even a church flower fund.